Hey, y'all. I hope you're ready because this episode is one of those rip the Band-Aid off and speak the truth kind of conversations. I'm talking to Jen Butler, a comedian, author, and fellow sensitive soul, about what it's like to live with overwhelming emotions, trauma, and suicidal thoughts, and how she made it to the other side. This isn't just like a clinical chat. It's raw, it's real, and honestly, at points, it's hilarious. Welcome back to the Suicide Prevention Lady podcast, where we make intervention easy. I'm your host, Dr. Rikki Turner, and I am a suicide intervention expert. Please take note, I am the thinky kind of doctor and not a medical professional. So please do not take anything in this episode as medical advice. Now here's Jen. All right, welcome to the podcast. We have Jen Butler today. Hi, Jen. How are you?
Hello. I'm excited. I'm nervous. I'm all things. How are you?
That's okay. I'm all of those things at the same time. So, and sometimes I do solo episodes and I still get nervous. So we're here to be real. Jen, you are a speaker, you are a writer, and all around badass. Is that pretty close?
Yeah, that about sums it up. I would say yeah, exactly. Just all around badass. And I mean, it depends on the day, right? Because some days I'm insecure and I hide from the world and I'm like, well, I suck. So on some days I feel like that. And so I feel like I should have a business card with two sides just to cover both of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am a comedian and a storyteller, and there's lots of different expressions of that.
Okay, so I understand that completely. I like to thank all the trauma from my past for my brilliant sense of humor.
So
and
sweet.
Right?
Yeah.
Thanks for doing the real work, younger Rikki. So with that, I'm assuming that you come to the podcast today with your own story of trauma and overcoming suicide. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I can talk a lot a bit about that. I don't know if I can talk a little bit about that. I don't have a 30-second version. Yeah, so the best way I can put it is that I've always had the volume turned up on life.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is not just sounds, but lights, emotions, interactions with humans, being able to pick up on the little subtle shifts in nuances of situations, but maybe not really understanding. I felt everything so deeply. And from a very young age, I wanted to find ways to numb that. I didn't know I was numbing. Like, I wasn't consciously aware at age 6 that when I was bashing my head against the wall, that I was like, I am releasing oxytocin in order to not feel the feelings. I had no idea. But in looking back at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was this precious, high-performing little kid who was the comedic relief and who was the helper and who was the therapist. And I, behind closed doors, would self-harm is where it really started. Never cutting or anything because of vanity. Vanity saved my life in that regard. It's one of the reasons I started getting tattoos, because I was like, well, I'm not going to fuck up the tattoo that I spent so much money on.
That I hear that as a strategy all the time that people don't think of. Yeah.
It's brilliant. So yeah, I mean, starting as young as 6 is when I really remember the human experience just being too much. And middle school sucked. Middle school sucks for everyone. But moving into high school is when suicidal ideations really became big for me. And as I grew up, I found other things like alcohol and pain pills and blending alcohol and pain pills, which was just an absolute delight because it numbed everything. But I was still showing up to work. I was still getting a 4.0 GPA in college. No one knew how much I was struggling behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Because I was so high performing and such a good actress.
Yeah.
Life happened and I continued with the way that I say it whenever I introduce myself as being in recovery is my name is Jen and I'm an alcoholic in recovery. And they're like, oh, hi, Jen. And I say, I'm in recovery from alcoholism, addiction, suicidality, self-harm, disordered eating, cancer, an autoimmune disorder, and a weird period of time when I only listened to dubstep. That's mainly what I say. Just really round it out. So it's like heavy comedy. Right. And that's pretty much it. But yeah, I mean, the different ways that I numbed myself worked until they didn't.
Yeah.
So I had an unhealthy, numbing relationship with food, with exercise, with alcohol, with pills, anything that I could find, with relationships. I just feel like I just wasn't equipped to be human. And I was walking around seeing all these other humans looking like they're having a good time on this ride. And I'm like, are they pretending or are they having a good time? And which of those is more depressing to me? Because if they're pretending and they're actually struggling, that's really sad. But if they're having a great time and I'm struggling, that is also sad. Both of these options suck.
Yeah.
I got to a point where, I mean, I would be drinking vodka and chewing pain pills and eating an entire jar of peanut butter and then punching myself in the head, like all in one sitting, because everything I was feeling was just so much. Especially anything that was even slightly reminiscent of rejection, or if someone right? If someone reacted to me with anything less than, oh my God, Jen, you are the best that there has ever been. If it was anything less than that, then it was like this full body hijack. And my emotions just didn't match what was happening in real life. And there was this, the fancy word I want to use is cognitive dissonance, but I don't even know if that's the right phrase. I just want to sound smart. So hopefully it's both. Hopefully it's the right phrase and I sound smart.
You were
right.
Top notch.
Yeah, good delivery. Okay, good. Phew. I realize I give myself away whenever I do that, where I'm like, I don't really know what that means. I wanted to sound smart, but oh well, here it is. It really created a lot of a disconnect within me where it felt like I was juggling all these different parts of myself and shoving a lot of parts aside and perpetuating a lot of the programming and stories that I heard as a kid, which was essentially, be happy, you have so much to be grateful for. Be happy, you have so much to be grateful for. And anytime that I was sad or mad, it was a bad thing. It was like, oh, how do we fix this? How do we fix this? And so I was continuing to perpetuate that cycle with myself as I got older. And then whenever I got sober, that opened up all the sensitivities and emotions. Oh my God. I was like, holy shit. It is so loud. And there was, I mean, a year or more where I could barely leave my apartment. And when I did, I couldn't make eye contact with people because I would have a panic attack, just like an outward panic attack staring at a stranger because
which got to feel really good, right?
Oh, yeah. I bet they really like that. They're like dealing with their own issues about self-image. And then I stare at them and panic and they're like, great, well, I'm ugly and I'm going back inside and Jen has ruined my life. Yeah.
It's not funny, but it is funny. Like from that perspective, you got to think like they have no idea what's going on. And they're like, oh, no idea. Okay. I knew I looked bad, but dang.
This new lipstick color clearly is not the right one. Yeah. But before I got sober, just backing up a little bit, I remember when I was 22, I was diagnosed with malignant melanoma. And I remember being so excited to have a cancer diagnosis because I finally had a reason to be as sad as I already was.
Ooh.
And I could get attention. I wanted attention. I wanted sympathy. Now, I'm not saying like the suicidality was to get attention, but it felt so good for people to give me the love and support for this physical ailment because I didn't get it for the emotional ailment because it's unseen.
Oh, pause. I'd like pause on that for just a second because you just put into words when I speak to people and when I go out and I'm trying to get through that we've got to help each other through this stuff. We've got to stop ostracizing people for mental health because if they had cancer, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to jump in and be like, hey, how can I help? Do you need food? Do you need to help around the house? Can I get you to a point? Like we're always trying to help those. And it's like, but someone says they're struggling with their mental health. And it's like, wow,
get it together.
That was really awkward. Thanks for bringing down the party, and it's like, it's all of a sudden, I don't want to make it worse. Like, well, you're not going to make cancer worse by getting in there and trying to help. Why are you, anyway, but the way you just said it from the patient perspective is like, it was safe to be sad because I had cancer.
Mhm.
It's not safe to be sad because I have a mental illness. Ugh. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And I would love to talk more on that entire topic, because if I don't know if you need to write that down and we go back to it, or if you're good at remembering. I'm not. I'll remember at 2:00 in the morning. I'll text you, be like, Rikki, dang it, remember that thing you said.
I am going to jot it down right now just in case, because the second I say, no, I'll remember that.
I'll totally remember.
I will.
Got it.
Okay,
so
go ahead.
Just a wee note on that is, it's a tough balance to find when supporting someone who is struggling with chronic suicidality, because I know that when people did try to help, that I was a black hole for people's love and care. I was so hungry for it that I was just this bottomless pit where no one could fill me up enough, because it wasn't the external help that I really needed. It was doing the work internally and finding some sort of spiritual connection or meaning to life, and working through pain and that sort of thing. Yeah. So I can understand the hesitation that people have to talk to someone about mental health stuff. But I think the main thing is that people get hung up on, oh, I want to do this right, or I don't want to feel awkward. And I feel like those two are bullshit excuses. And if someone you know is struggling, it's better to try than not. Even if you send them, like, I like to send gifs. I don't know if people say gifs or gifs, it's a whole thing, but of like the guy throwing glitter and like, how the fuck are you? You know, just like silly stuff where it's like, hey, I still like you even though you're sad.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll do that. I still like you even though you're sad.
Yeah. What a strong sentence.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Let's make shirts.
Oh, I love that.
There it is. We have our $1 million idea. It's great. And then on the back, it's like, do you still like me though? just
am I still good enough?
Yeah. But like, can you validate me too? Okay, next. So the cancer, thankfully, with a couple of surgeries, was removed. And then people stopped caring. And I was really sad. Now, the cancer is also what introduced me to pain pills. So the pain pills I always got legally, because I was able to call up a doctor and say, I have an ouchie. And they'd say, here's some oxycodone. And I'd say, nom, 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 thank you.
Yeah.
And then I really started to combine the pain pills with the alcohol. And that was a beautiful, dangerous place to be. And I never knew that I was poisoning myself. And I never knew that I was addicted. I just didn't have that level of self-awareness, because I was so in survival mode all the time. But I was barely surviving. It was like, I think of someone who's being held almost all the way underwater, and you're just able to get little sips of air every now and then, is how living with suicidality felt. And so my first suicide attempt, I was 23. And I remember, so I had collected, am I allowed to talk about how, or like, do we go into depth on that or not?
Here's a trigger warning for anybody that you might want to fast forward for a little bit, but if you're comfortable hearing about this part of the story, please continue.
Okay. So I don't have to give specifics, but essentially once the attempt was made and I thought I was heading off into oblivion, I remember feeling true relief for the first time in my life. I remember feeling like, finally, I get to leave. And it wasn't something that I did for attention. It really was me wanting to leave. And what's so wild is people were very surprised by it, because again, I was so internalized with the struggle. I didn't want to overwhelm. I felt like I was a burden already, and anything less than perfect behavior was bad or wrong. The whole experience that I had in a behavioral health facility was not a good one.
Okay, so pause for a second.
Yeah.
So you had the attempt. How did you survive the attempt, first off? Like, can you paint a little bit of a picture of attempt to you found yourself in a behavioral facility?
Yes, absolutely. So I had an on again, off again boyfriend / best friend from the age of 15 onward. And I texted him a goodbye text, and I texted my brother a goodbye text too. And it wasn't like goodbye so long or anything. It was just very ominous. And they were like, oh, this is real. So the on again, off again boyfriend called 911. And I actually haven't talked to him since then. So it's been
wow.
15 years. Yeah, he never talked to me again, which is one of those amends that I don't know if I'll ever be able to make. So it's a living amends.
Okay.
That's a big part of recovery is, oh.
Yeah, you're not, it's, okay. The reason I'm asking this is because some people, when they attempt and somebody intervenes, they are mad at the person for intervening. And so they don't speak to them. And then other times it's the person who intervened is like, how dare you put me in that position? It won't happen again. And so then they kind of remove themselves. And so I was just trying to get a picture of what happened here. You haven't talked to him since that night.
It was his choice to no longer talk to me again. Yeah. And I don't know if I had anger at him because I think I was mostly just ashamed and embarrassed that it didn't work, and ashamed and embarrassed that I burdened my family when trying not to burden them. And that was the hardest part about suicidality is it wasn't that I wanted to die. I wanted to cease existence. I didn't want to create a mess for the EMT to find. I didn't want to cause pain to my family.
Yeah.
And that pissed me off even more because I'm like, what? I'm stuck here because I don't want to hurt people's feelings? Fuck. Right? It's like, what?
So insightful though, because like so many people struggle with that. They're like, you know, I know this is going to be better off for them in the long run, but it's going to hurt first, and I don't want to hurt them, you know.
Right.
And so, and which, by the way, if you're thinking those, none of those are true.
Right. In the moment, it feels true, but it's funny mirrors. It's just funny mirrors. It's really what it is. We're seeing life through a very skewed, foggy, funny mirror lens.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see, my experience. So I woke up in the hospital and was hanging on by a thread, and they had my mom and my dad were in the hospital room. And I remember even then trying to be funny. I remember on the ambulance ride, I was in and out of consciousness, and I remember trying to have a motivational conversation with the EMT to really get them to pursue their dreams. Yeah.
On brand. I love it.
Yeah, totally. I remember her name was Red and she had red hair. So Red, if you're out there, you were fantastic and you do have beautiful eyes. I was not lying. And I hope that you pursued your dreams. But, you know, even in that moment, rather than surrendering to the fact that I needed help and that people were there to help me, I was still trying to find a way to help them, even though I clearly was giving from an empty cup. There was nothing left. I'd given the cup away. There was just nothing. I was just like, it was just air.
Little dust cloud tumbling.
Yeah, exactly. And then in the actual hospital, I apparently was joking that the beautiful nurse, who is this beautiful Black man, I was joking that he was Brad Pitt, and he was very clearly not Brad Pitt. Their skin tones are different. But I told my mom apparently that I was going to marry Brad Pitt, and then that was Brad Pitt. And then I apologized. I remember this. I apologized to everyone there that I didn't wear sexier underwear. All right. Like, I'm laying there hooked up to machines, and I'm like, shouldn't have worn the Scooby-Doo underwear. Really should have done the lacy thong just in case.
Just in case. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's I have such compassion and love for that 15-year ago me who was still so concerned about how others perceived me and how I was impacting them. Meanwhile, I couldn't even comprehend that the suicide attempt was the most hurtful thing that I could do to them. I thought these little things like the underwear I'm wearing or whether or not I'm funny on any given day, I don't know, it's just lots of little cuts over a very long period of time, lots of little bits of repression and little bits of masking here and there and pretending things are fine when they're not. It just built up and built up and built up until I couldn't handle it anymore. And I didn't want to handle it anymore.
Yeah.
It felt unfair.
Yes. No, I totally understand that sentiment. I had, I think actually, no, I guess 2 podcasts ago, I had I had some therapists on that are in acceptance and commitment therapy. They're experts in that, and that's something that they talked about a lot. So I was talking to these therapists, and we were talking about chronic pain and suicidality, and it's like,
Oh God.
you get stuck in this. It's so unfair, and that's where I come from. Like that's where I can really relate to people on that, is because you were talking about autoimmune diseases as well. It seems like every 3 months I get a new one, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm all tapped out with the chronic pain and the weird random things that no one believes, and you get stuck in this loop of it's not fair. And it's the same thing as like, why are these people who are going around either pretending to be happy or genuinely happy, like you were noticing, why didn't I get that switch? Like, can I switch that on somewhere where I can just be happy and content? And it really does seem just completely unfair that some people get the struggle and other people don't.
Something that I've noticed on that same line of thought is throughout my 20s. So, eventually I did get sober, and there's a lot of emotional work that I had to do on myself, and mental work and all sorts of stuff. And I remember feeling like such a messy shit show. And I was a messy shit show because I'm like sorting through all this stuff from my past and trying to understand what's real and what's not, and what narratives did I learn and absorb. Which of them can I rewrite? Can I change the way that I view life? Can I actually live life? Do I want to actually live life? I was going through all of this, and now fast forward to where I am now. I'm 38, and I've done over a decade of intense healing work, and I've gotten to a place where I'm okay being alive, and I don't fight myself to stay alive each day. And I've worked so hard to make a lot of my dreams come true. And I'm seeing a lot of the people who in my 20s and my early 30s, when I was in my shit show phase, my shit show era, if you will, the ones that seemed put together then are falling apart now. So I think that even those who seem really happy or are genuinely happy have maybe not to as extreme of a level as those of us who are really highly sensitive to the human experience, but everyone has those little tiny cuts that happen throughout life, and everyone has bad days and fears and phobias and compulsions. Everyone has them, I think, just to varying degrees. And so it's been really interesting that even the people who maybe were put off by my presence being as messy as it was when I really started to work through my shit, now seeing them start to go through some of that mess and some of that pain as they transform, I'm able to have a lot more compassion for them. But it's also very validating for me, because for the longest time I was comparing my messy behind the scenes to their highlight reel. I'm out here going like, hey, I'm working through recovery, and I'm a mess, and I'm overreacting to everything, and I feel like I'm hijacked by my emotions all the time, and it's scary and it's awful. And meanwhile, I'm like at a kid's birthday party and saying this to an adult, and they're like,
Yeah.
nice to meet you. I gotta go. So now I'm seeing those people who looked at me like I had a lobster coming out of my head, and now they're going through stuff. And I'm like, okay, none of us is immune to the human experience.
Yeah. So you talk about being just a highly sensitive person.
Yeah.
So how did you come to the realization that you were just more sensitive to what was going on in the world? And how did you come to that self-awareness, and then how did you work through it?
So I know that there's the capital HSP for highly sensitive person. I more so mean it in a lowercase way, where it's more of like the umbrella of, I think a lot of people can fall underneath that, of being really highly sensitive to the human experience. And that can show up in lots of different ways. It can show up as struggling to emotionally regulate. It can show up as being really sensitive to sounds or lights, or we feel like we're feeling other people's feelings, or we feel like we're extra connected to nature, or we feel like we're feeling the pain of the collective consciousness, and we feel like fucking crazy people for feeling that way. I think that my experience throughout my recovery, the first part of it was me trying like hell to fix myself so I could be quote unquote normal. The people who are listening can't see, I'm doing bunny ears with my fingies.
Yeah.
So I was trying so hard to fix myself and use self-care and self-help as a way to become this normal boxed in person that was acceptable by life.
Mm-hmm.
So in through that journey and through just the layers and layers and layers of peeling back and really anchoring into and finding and finally feeling and expressing those feelings that I had held in for years or decades or lifetimes, once I really was able to process through a lot of that and learn to get more grounded into my body, it took so much effort and continues to take a lot of effort, but I'm in more of a maintenance phase now, to simply do day-to-day things and to simply interact with people, because it's like my antenna were so sensitive to everything happening. So I think that it was really me making myself compassionately, maybe not at first compassionately, but a research project where I'm like, I want to learn everything I can about me, about my brain, about my body, about how I experience life. And then doing some research to see maybe how other people experience life. But still, I couldn't find any material out there that really described how I experienced life. And going, oh man, I went to so many doctors and got differing diagnoses from every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one would say, oh, the last one was wrong. You have this. While at first I was looking for a specific label so I could have a reason for why I felt the way that I felt. I found over the course of years that removing those labels was more helpful for me, and zooming out and finding kind of a higher arching, lowercase, highly sensitive person is genuinely just saying, like, I feel things deeply.
Yeah.
I catch on to things that other people don't catch on to.
Mm-hmm.
And my caregivers, my loving caregivers, were not equipped to help me learn how to human.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had to learn how to parent myself. And then in doing that, as I've learned, it's given me the opportunity to help share my messy behind the scenes with others, so that while they're walking around with their happy face on, or they're hiding from life, both of which I did, they can go, oh my God, this person gets it. I'm not crazy. I'm not alone. Because I think that's the main thing. That was like the main concern that I had, is like,
Yeah.
there's no one else in the world who experiences life like this. Or if there is, how the fuck do I connect to them? Because they're scared and hiding too.
Right. Yeah. 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 I know for me, it was like I identify so much with your story. Um, I never went through the ad- I never went through the addiction phase of things to numb things, and I probably had some pretty disordered eating there for a while. Um, so definitely that, and I think I self-harmed in ways not physical, but in like put myself through things because I thought I deserved it, and not
Yeah.
because, I really wanted to do those things or whatever. And the extreme focus on perception, like, what do people think of me?
Mm-hmm.
Am I enough yet? I have to achieve, 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 achieve to be worthy. And if I didn't achieve, it was like the worst thing in the world. You were talking about the rejection, any form of rejection. For anybody who doesn't know the technical term for this, it's rejection sensitive dysphoria. And it's where we have, if somebody says, no, I don't want to come, like if you invite somebody over to your house and they say, no, I can't, I've got plans, to any normal neurotypical person, that's like, okay, cool, you had plans, neat, we'll just do it another time. To us, it's, well, they clearly don't like me. Clearly they don't want to spend time with me. They don't really have plans. They just wanted to not be in my presence anymore. I wonder what I did to anger them. And we're thinking about it constantly, trying to figure out what we can do better to make them like us again so that they would want to come and do the thing or whatever. Never mind actually being rejected, like an actual rejection of like somebody broke up with us or, something like that. Like, oh, just, I'd rather be put down. Like, just go ahead and put me out of my misery. Please don't reject me. I've done a lot of work to try to get over that too. Now I don't care. Like, whatever. I'm not your flavor. That's fine. Turn the channel.
That's great. That's a great place to get to. For me, it was less of the thoughts and more of being fully hijacked by emotions.
Yeah.
So it would be like this hot this hotness, I guess, this heat, hotness, whatever,
Yeah,
this
but
fiery feeling like in my chest and
prickly.
it up into my face and the sinking in my tummy and less tightness in my throat. And I would feel like my skin was fucking crawling and it was just so much. And what I would do is I thought, oh, that situation, quote unquote, triggers me. So I need to avoid that.
Yes.
And that is what I did for so long was
Mhm.
that hurts me. Ouch. That hurt my feelings. So I'm going to avoid that. And then I tried to train everyone around me. That hurts my feelings. So you should avoid that. So
Mhm.
I was essentially making everyone around me walk on eggshells
Mhm.
because I didn't want them to hurt my tender feelings.
Mhm.
But in doing that, I was making my world smaller and smaller and smaller because the way life works is it's going to hit our shit. It's going to
Mhm.
hurt our feelings. And it wasn't the rejection that I was so afraid of. It was how rejection made me feel.
Mhm.
And so that's what I was hiding from was the physical feelings associated with my experience of rejection.
Mhm.
So actually, and this is jumping far forward, but the story jumps all over the place, and that's life, baby.
That's
That's
okay.
showbiz.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in 2022, I did a rejection journey where I actually sought out 22 rejections in the year of 2022 because I was so tired of hiding from life. And I knew that I was meant to speak and I knew that I was meant to write books and movies. And I was just hiding and complaining. And I got tired of that. And I was like, okay, what happens if I actually seek out the rejection? And what happened was wild. I mean, the first few times that I got rejected, so an example is I had written a screenplay and I'm like, okay, I was hoping that Steven Spielberg would just show up at my door. I
Right.
actually have this guy who's printed out. The people listening can't see it, but I have Steven Spielberg's face.
I was not prepared for
Yeah,
that.
there you go. So I thought it was going to be like a little knock, knock,
Yeah.
knock, knock, knock. And
Heard
like,
you've been
Ben?
writing.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, Stevie Spielberg? Like,
Yeah.
did you write a screenplay? I did write a screenplay.
Yeah.
And then he
He
was
does
going to
go
hand
by
me
Stevie. Yeah.
$1 million check right here for the best screenplay ever written. So that's how I thought it was going to go. And then when it didn't, I'm like, well, this is fucked. So I guess I have to actually put myself out there. So I started to submit the screenplay to different contests. And then I did get rejected, or the script got rejected. And at first it was debilitating and awful, but I was able to mark it down as a success because I had gotten rejected. So I'm like, okay, that's a hash mark there. So it was like this odd way of bypassing some of the perfectionism and the fear around rejection because I'm like, oh, no, this is the thing I want. I'm seeking it out.
Yeah.
So it's almost giving a bit of an illusion of control. And then over time, I started to have an odd thing happen, which was success. So like my screenplay started doing well in contests and people were interested in reading it. And then one of my articles was published and all the stuff was happening simply because I was trying. And I was like, wait a second, it can't be this easy. And so by the end of the year, it took me the entire year to get the 22 rejections because so much success happened and my life started to expand and grow because I had stopped hiding from the big scary dragon of rejection and was learning to feel the feelings in my body, sit with them, breathe with them, self-soothe, all the different tools that I'd learned in order to stay on earth.
Mm-hmm.
And to stay still in the discomfort of emotions. And in doing that, it was, I didn't know it at the time, but retraining my nervous system on what was and was not a threat.
Yeah. Yeah. So the way you described how it felt, I totally identify with that too. Like I've got the ruminating thoughts. I also get the, like, it feels like I'm about to be physically attacked. Like I'm going into fight or flight mode. And it's because you thought I could make improvements on this paper? What?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The reaction is insanely out of proportion with what is actually warranted. The way that I originally started working on this is Toastmasters. Okay.
Brilliant.
It's the weirdest thing. And look, if you're into Toastmasters and you're still in it and everybody, I like whoever's listening, it's not for everybody. It's for some people, and that's great. I ended up getting out for completely different reasons, but it really, really helped me because in a Toastmasters meeting, if you're speaking, number one, they are going to ding a bell every time you say a filler word. And like, as you're speaking, and you can't stop and be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, you just have to keep going, but it makes you aware. But to me, that was an open and public criticism of me. And so if I got a ding, it was just like, I felt it then, like it dings and I feel like a bear has come into the room and I've got to fight it off. So that was one thing. And then after you're done with your speech, somebody was assigned to evaluate you. They stand up in front of the group and they give your evaluation, and they teach you the sandwich, but that, they start with what you did well. They then go into what you could improve on. And then they try to end it with something you could, build off of or whatever, and leave on a good note. Public criticism, I volunteered for that shit. And I would it started off, it was on the campus I worked on. And so I'd go to a meeting and we'd do it and everything. And I put on just the bravest face. I was a brave little soldier. And then I would go back to my office and cry. Have a complete meltdown there and okay, you can do it. You can do it. People do this all the time. This is not life and death. You can do a speech and get criticized.
Yeah.
But that's literally how I had to do it, because I would get so if I was corrected in a meeting by a supervisor,
oh God, the end of the world.
I would, can I just crawl under the table and die right here?
It's time to go.
Yeah. Like, my time has come. Just put that on my tombstone. It's fine. Yep. But now it's like, I'm the first one to volunteer to do a draft now, because I'm like, here, we got to start somewhere. Here, it's crap. Go for it. And but it takes those baby steps. Like you were talking about the rejection journey, like you were looking for rejection. There's a whole trend on TikTok of people doing that. We're looking for rejection. So they'll go to a restaurant and be like, can I have a free coffee? Expecting to be told no. Sometimes they'll say yes. And hey, cool, I got a free something. But it's to prove to yourself that you won't actually die if someone tells you no. Wild, but it works. Yeah. So I love that you just kind of came up with that on your own. That's so cool. So how did you get to the point of, listen, I need resources. I know that I am taking the world a little bit more seriously, or I'm more sensitive to the world than most people. How did you get from there? Tell us about the journey from there to, I wrote a book to help people who are also struggling with the spicy world.
I remember a specific suicidal episode where it was one of those ones where it's almost like people have a panic attack, and I would have just a despair attack. I tried to explain this to my therapist, and it was the one thing that out of the 8 years we've worked together that she didn't quite get. She was like, I think that's a panic attack. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, it's a totally different thing. I'm not panicking. I'm in absolute despair and grief that I'm alive. That's what the feeling is. And so I was in one of those places, and this was right before I got sober. And it feels like when I'm in those places, when I got to those mindsets where it's that fight or flight, freak out, where it seems like the only way to stop this feeling is death. That is the only way. I've been here always. Even when I wasn't here, it was under the surface. That's how it feels in that moment. It's like time stretches out. And I actually had, I don't know if it was a voice in my head or simply just a thought of, okay, this feels like it's lasting forever. I wonder how long this actually lasts. So I got out a notebook, journal thing, and I wrote down the time that the episode started of really intense suicidality. And I also remembered back, okay, what did I eat? How much alcohol did I drink? And who was I talking to? What happened right before this? Did something actually spark this? Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah. And so it was my first attempt at introspection, I guess. And I found out that, and I continued to do this, right? That suicidal episode lasted 30 minutes. Not forever. It lasted 30 minutes until I felt like, okay, I have a little bit of control again. Yeah. Because in those suicidal moments, it really felt like someone else was driving the vehicle of Jen, and it felt like I didn't have control.
Yeah.
So I continued to keep track of when these big intense episodes would happen. And then I was able to look back at, oh, this is really closely tied to when I talk to this one or these two specific people who I don't have healthy relationships with. Whenever I get off the phone with them, I find myself wanting to die. Or if I drink a whole lot of alcohol first thing in the morning, surprise, later in the day, I'm going to feel like shit and also want to die. So I started to notice patterns and I started to notice a connection. And so I went and I decided to do a deep dive. I bought I think it's like the owner's manual to the brain. It's a giant book. I did not read all of it. I read enough to sound dangerous, to sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I remember learning just about like the importance of sleep, and I learned about neurotransmitters, and I was like, what? Like all this is going on inside my brain. And I got really curious. I think that was the strongest word for my entire healing journey is curiosity.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't in a place to do self-love. A lot of times they're like, self-love is the answer. And I'm like, that's a really, I think can be a harmful thing to say to someone who's actively suicidal because it seems so fucking far away.
Got to meet people where they are.
Got to meet them where they are.
Yeah.
So having curiosity, and then it was very much like one little step at a time. Because I remember there was a long while that I wasn't able to get out of bed and shower. I had made my world so small. You know, this is before going through the rejection journey. Obviously, rejection journey was later in my life. So this is right before I got sober. I got sober when I was 27. That it had been weeks since I'd showered or brushed my teeth, and I was just hiding.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, what if I just floss my teeth with a little floss pick today? That's like the one thing that I'm going to do today.
Mm-hmm.
I can do that. I can just lay here in bed and I can floss my teeth. I could throw the floss pick away.
Mm-hmm.
Check. I did it. The next day, did it again. By day 3, I did it again. And then I actually felt enough momentum to be able to get up and go brush my teeth. And I was like, whoa, okay, now.
Yeah.
Show off. And the next day I was able to do the little floss pick to brush my teeth. And then by the end of the week, I took a shower. And so I started to see that there was a lot of power in this little tiny repeated baby steps in order to gain momentum to help kind of ramp me up into being able to do normal day-to-day human things. And once I realized that I wasn't completely stuck and that maybe some of this was under my control, maybe there was actual hope. While I didn't feel hope, I allowed myself to feel curiosity.
Yeah.
So I bought all kinds of books and I learned about meditation, and I got sober and I worked through the 12 steps and I got into therapy, and I just went like deep dive where I'm like, I am going to be the A+ healer. I'm going to be so healed. I'm going to be so much more healed than every other person.
I'm going to be the best healed person.
I'm going to be the best at being so humble about being healed. And that's unfortunately not quite how it works.
Yeah.
But, when seeking out all these different books, a lot of them are, so much helpful stuff out there, and books that I would love every single human to read. One of them is The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Have you read this book?
I have not.
Oh my God. So it's super short. It's an easy read. And it really talks about the 4 agreements we can make with ourselves in life in order to not be miserable in life. And in short, they're don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. Always do your best and be impeccable with your word. So learning about these different things of like, oh, I'm learning about value systems or values, and learning that I could retrain my brain. There was a lot of retraining to do and a lot of unlearning to do. And out of all the books that I found, I still couldn't find one that was really open about suicidality or experiencing life the way that I did, right? It seemed like everyone else had this guidebook on how to human, and that Amazon forgot to deliver one to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I even recognized, even then, like, because I was starting to get more of those introspection skills and recognize that I'm not the center of the universe, even though I feel like I'm the center of the universe, and everyone should treat me like I'm the center of the universe until I want them not to. But I still was struggling with a lot of that, a lot of the self-centeredness, but I was starting to have more of that introspection. So there were a lot of really wonderful books out there, but I still wasn't seeing myself in any of the books. And what I mean by that is a lot of them felt prescriptive. A lot of them felt like the outsider who was the professional who had done the school or had the awakening or whatever, had the letters by their name, was like, here is the answer. Here is the thing to do. Here is what you need to do. And in a lot of instances I listened. I was like, oh, this is the answer. This is the thing that I need to do. And there are a lot of programs out there too with like self-proclaimed gurus who are like, this is the way to be happy and this is the way to love yourself, as if there's just one perfect little concoction of things to do and then you're happy all the time. That's not realistic. And that's actually shouldn't be the goal, in my opinion, because all feelings belong, Rikki.
I literally do have written down, feel what you feel, because like you've been talking about, something would make you uncomfortable and then you would resist it and, surgically remove it out of your life. So you no longer felt that anymore. I'm currently in that journey as well. And
Wonderful.
it sounds like we actually have one of the same mental disorders. Misophonia. Have you heard of
I do have misophonia. That's a real deal thing. And it's miserable.
It is miserable, right?
That's the one I haven't quite figured out yet. I haven't quite found
I'm in
relief
therapy for it right now. Like literally, I'm like, it got to the point that I was getting suicidal because of misophonia. Like, what on earth? Literal sounds are driving me off the earth. That's fucked up. Nope. But I just recently figured out that what I was doing by putting in the earphones or like making people shut up around me or not allowing gum within, a 20-mile radius of me or whatever, what you resist persists. And so it just gets stronger.
No.
So the reactions just get stronger. And so it sounds like that's also what you kind of experience as well, is like isolate yourself for so long and then you interact with it and, you see this woman trying on her new lipstick and you're like, panic attack, can't do it.
Right. And also I thought that I was surgically removing the different feelings, but it turns out that you hold it in and it doesn't go anywhere until we actually process and release it.
If this episode hit home for you or made you think of somebody who might be silently struggling, please share it, post it, text it, smoke signal it, carrier pigeon, I don't care. But get them the message however you need to. Jen's story is just so powerful. I think it's important to share. I also want to hear from you. You can DM me on Instagram if you'd like, or you can send me a message on here or via email. But tell me, when was the last time you admitted to yourself, I need help? Or when did someone say that to you? Someone shared that they needed help. These stories matter. And I'm always looking for inspiration for the next podcast. And that is one way that you can absolutely contribute. Now, next week, Jen and I pick up right where we left off and continue our conversation. We explore what healing actually looks like, how she learned to trust again, and the message she wants everyone who's ever felt like they were too much to hear. So you don't want to miss it next week, where we continue to learn how to intervene with ease.